very important role in very much in you deciding, over 80% of you decided to support Bush in his war. So I believe we do have Danny with us. Danny, welcome to the show. Danny, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good, great. I'm glad you finally was able to get on the program. I was worried there for a little bit. Danny, what's going on in Canada?
Well, there's a big conference here on the propaganda, and Noam Chomsky and his former colleague Edward Herman, who wrote the book Manufacturing Consent about mass communication, are speaking here 20 years after they came up with this theory of the propaganda model, basically arguing that news and information serves as propaganda for the dominant elites in society. So what we see, what we hear, what we read is not something that just is necessarily the most important news, but it's news that in some way is presented to serve the interests of the people in power.
Okay. Danny, I'm told that you can only stay with us for 30 minutes, so let's get down to it. What is your problem with the media? You think the media is not telling the American people the truth?
Well, we know that the media is not telling the American people the truth. That's not my opinion. This is something that's been documented time and time again. We, now look back at the run-up to the war in Iraq, and we see that the media, almost every outlet, basically accepted as fact government claims which have been proven not to be true. The weapons of mass destruction, the link between Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden, all of these points were driven home over and over again in media outlets as if it was the facts. In fact, in the run-up to the war, there were 800 experts on American television on all the channels, and of those 800 experts, only 6 opposed the war. So there was no balance, there was no perspective, there was no context. It was all government propaganda. And in many ways, that's why the American people went from opposing the war to supporting the war, because they believed that we were at risk, that we were being threatened, that nuclear weapons could be used against the United States, etc., and so forth.
So, Danny, how could...
Only later that it was acknowledged that not only was this not true, but many media outlets, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, the presidents of the networks, all agreed that we were not critical enough, that we did not examine this information and analyze it and offer counter points of view.
Danny.
So when I say the media isn't serving the people, it's not just me. There's a big body of thought that feels that way.
Okay. Danny, in a free society, how could this happen?
Well, it's a good question, and the reason it happened is because media in America is increasingly dominated by fewer and fewer companies. So we have media concentration, a handful of companies running our media system, and they're choosing who presents the news and what news to present. It's a management system of news and information. And unfortunately, other points of view, like the points of view at the conference here, are not represented. And that's a big problem. And right now I've done a film called In Debt We Trust. It's about the debt crunch in America, about people who can't pay their bills, about 2 million families facing foreclosure. And by and large, this story was only covered in the business pages. Only recently, after the stock market dropped 400 points, did this story get into the front pages of the newspaper and into the main news. For the most part, it was treated as if only the business world would be interested in this, even though millions of Americans are affected by it. And that's why I made In Debt We Trust.
Now, do you really believe people like the New York Times when they say we should have been more critical, that we were not? Don't you think that they knew exactly what they were doing and now they are trying to get away?
It's not just that. There are examples of critical coverage. There are journalists who have reported on this issue well. There has been some good coverage in the New York Times, but the question is when. The coverage, for the most part, has followed the crisis, not preceded it. In other words, while these loans were being made, these subprime loans, to many of the poorest people in America, the New York Times was not covering it. It was only afterwards, after the mortgage meltdown, the market meltdown, that the Times came in and started analyzing all this.
Right.
So
but I mean, Danny, don't you think they knew before they started this critical coverage, but they knew what they were doing before?
Well,
that was what was required of them.
Let me just finish and respond to you. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just think that the way news tends to get covered tends to reflect the interests of people in power. And as a consequence, when poor people, working class people, or even middle class people are really suffering, that doesn't become news unless there's a crisis. When there's a crisis, it becomes news. So, this is a general pattern of coverage. I edit Mediachannel.org. That's a big online network, a website, and a network of organizations that monitor the media. So a lot of these concerns that I'm expressing, there's been a lot of studies, research, and analysis about it. It's not just, my opinion. There is a lot of evidence to this.
Okay. Now, what about, are you saying that the American people are gullible, are so gullible that they believed a lie?
Well, look, in every society, people are susceptible to influential, well-presented propaganda. This was true in Nazi Germany, where the whole state promoted propaganda. It was true in Rwanda.
This is America. This is not Nazi Germany.
No, but I'm saying this is not just an Americans are dumb. No, Americans aren't dumb, but there's a culture here where our news media doesn't really help people understand the background and the context of issues.
Why?
So people get news, but they don't really understand why. They don't have, the dots are not connected. So
why?
It's not the people's fault. It's the media failing to do the job they're supposed to do.
Why? Why the media is failing to do the job? Why?
Because they put their corporate interests, their profit interests, ahead of their duty to inform the American people. I mean, in America, we have a free press, supposedly, and it's protected by the Constitution. Freedom of the press is in the Constitution, and the reason it was put there is so that the media could be a watchdog, serve as a forum of accountability for the public. But when they fail to do that, and when they devote more and more of their airtime and their print to covering celebrities, covering Paris Hilton, to covering all sorts of trivia, it's not surprising that people don't know what's going on.
Sounds like the media was, instead of the watchdog, they were the watchguard that is watching the people.
Yeah, well, maybe the lapdog is another way of putting it. In other words,
so is the media telling us the truth now?
Generalize about everything, because there are some journalists trying to do a good job, but I'm talking about the press as an institution, the media as an institution. I worked inside ABC News for 8 years. I worked at CNN when CNN first started, for the first startup period of CNN. I've worked in print. I've worked in commercial radio. I've had a lot of experience on the inside.
Danny,
so my opinions reflect that.
Danny, were you ever told that, no, we don't like this story, you need to write it from a different point of view?
Well, yeah, I've been told that. I've been told that many times in various things that I was doing, where, journalists often don't have real freedom. The way the stories are being packaged and presented often reflects, the formats, the formulas that the television networks use. And if you're a journalist, you tend to get along by going along. You present what's expected of you. And so in many cases, nobody has to censor you directly. You just know that this is going to get me in trouble if I do this, so you don't do it.
Now, do you think now the media did they change that? Are they telling us the truth now?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a battle, and part of the problem is the people themselves. We have to be more willing to seek out diverse sources of information. We have access to the Internet. We can read the press from around the world. We don't only have to read the New York Post if you live in New York. You can read a lot of other outlets. So we have to take responsibility for our information choices just like we do for our food choices. If you just eat McDonald's all day long, you're going to get sick. If you just rely on Fox News all day long, you're going to get sick in another way. So we have to take responsibility for this, too. And we have to try to teach media literacy. I mean, I really would like your listeners to check out Mediachannel.org, which is my website, and I write a blog every day about these issues. And also InDebtWeTrust.com, which is about my debt movie, and see that there are other points of view out there also, but you have to try to find them.
Danny, do you think journalists and reporters have duty to their job and their profession, or to the country first?
Yes,
Which one?
Of course they do. And
Which one comes first?
Know that, and that's why there's a big conflict. For example, Rupert Murdoch now wants to buy the Wall Street Journal. Many of the journalists on the Wall Street Journal are hoping that the owners of the paper won't sell it because they believe he will debase the journalism. He will use it for political purposes. And so they're urging the managers not to sell it, that they don't own the paper at the end of the day. It's a family that owns it. You know, it's big economic interests. It's not individual journalists.
Okay. No, actually, my question was, I'm glad you told us that, but my question was, do you think, as a journalist and a reporter, your duty is to your profession first or to your country?
Well, I think, I have a duty, in my view, to the public and to the truth, not necessarily to my profession, because a profession is an amorphous thing, but to the values of what journalism should be about. And that is trying to report accurately, trying to offer diverse viewpoints, trying to offer background and analysis and explanation so people can understand the news. I mean, 69% of the young people in America can't find Iraq on a map. They don't know where it is after almost 5 years of war. So, people are not being well informed.
Okay. So what do we do here? Are we being more informed? Because as you know, not everybody gets on the internet to look up for news.
Where are you originally from?
I'm sorry?
Where are you right now?
I'm in Louisiana.
Okay. Well, look at Louisiana. I mean, look at all the warnings that were made in Louisiana before Katrina, all the concerns that were expressed about the levees, about the the dangers in Louisiana that were not paid attention to. And it's only then suddenly this crisis happened. Everybody's trying to figure out, why did this happen? There were many people who warned of this. There were many scientists who warned of this. So, this is a situation where these warnings were overlooked, and many people suffered as a result.
Okay, I know you have to go, but I still need. I know you answered this question also before, but I want to know why and how everyone in the mainstream media was singing the same song before we went and attacked Iraq.
Bill Moyers just did a film about this on public television.
He did. I'm sorry. He did a lousy job. He did not get into the principles of what went wrong.
All right, well, I did a film. I'll talk about my film, Weapons of Mass Deception, WMD.
Okay.
WMDthefilm.com. People can check it out online. There are clips, there's information, and I did an investigation. I also wrote a book called When News Lies, about the media coverage and the war. I went into it in great detail. In 2003, I wrote the first book on Iraq called Embedded Weapons of Mass Deception, where I just sat at home in my living room and I wrote down what was being reported on all the networks. And I saw the pattern of deception, the pattern of lies that were taking place on the air. And so I was very concerned about it. As a journalist, as a producer, I felt a duty to challenge it. And I did it with a book, and then I did it with a film, which was seen in 39 countries. So there are journalists who are speaking out about this. I didn't see the Moyers film in its entirety, but I think that most people rely on television, unfortunately, not on newspapers for their information. And that's what I focused on in my film WMD. It was really about the role of the television media.
You mentioned that you're not you talked about conspiracy, that there's no conspiracy. You don't think for everyone in the mainstream media to be doing very much the same thing, you would not think there was an agreement between them to be a propaganda machine for the Bush administration?
Yeah, I think there are conspiratorial aspects of this in the sense that these companies, these big media companies, all run on a for-profit basis, and they all tend to be more alike than different. Even Fox News and CNN are very similar in their approach. So, the fact is we're not getting informed adequately, and we need to do something about it. One of the things we need to do is to promote media reform, to make the media an issue, and that's what I'm trying to do with Mediachannel.org, to write about these problems, and I write a blog every day about the role of the media and about the news that we're not getting. So that's what I'm trying to do.
So are you saying to get
people?
Are you saying to get
narrative of information?
Danny, are you saying to get some legislation into this matter that we can?
Well, yeah. I mean, we have to. First of all, we have to break up these media monopolies. No, company should be able to control as many stations as these control. Secondly, we need to ensure more diversity on the airwaves, more access for other points of view. That can be done with laws, and it should be done.
Well, it was, and wasn't it? And Reagan changed the law.
Right, exactly. So we got to try to change it back. I mean, what else can we do? We need to. People are not aware that media is an issue. They think it's just in their living room. It's just that's the way it is. But if you go from the United States to another country and you watch the BBC or you watch Al Jazeera, you'll see a whole different approach to news. So there's not one way of doing news. We have a kind of cultural conformity in our country, and we have a propaganda system. We have to challenge it. That's why I'm at this conference in Windsor, Canada, and that's why I'm talking to you on the air, because I think this issue is so important, and not just about the media, but about almost every issue in Debt We Trust is about credit and debt. And this is a very big issue that we're not getting adequate information on. That's why I made that film. So this is the responsibility also of your listeners to check this stuff out. Let's show In Debt We Trust in your community. Let's show WMD. Let's have discussions of this. Let's inform the people and educate them. That's my hope. Thanks so much.
Very good, Danny. I'm sure our viewers enjoyed all the information you had given them. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Danny Schechter, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Enter your desk.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, we tried to squeeze as much as we could. He is at a conference in Canada. And as you know, we have talked about this before on this show. We had many shows about the media and how the media, it's supposed to be the watchdog. It was supposed to be a free press. That's why it was in the Constitution that the media is supposed to be able to very much cover without fear, cover events and bring them to you, because we are in a democracy. And in a democracy, we're supposed to have transparency. And the only way you can have transparency is to have a press that is not afraid of the government, that is not afraid of his editors, like reporters. They're not supposed to be afraid of their editors. They're supposed to go out in the field, get the story, come back, and tell you what the story is. They're supposed to be watching the government and coming back to you and telling you what the government is doing. That's in a free society, that's how it works. But unfortunately, in our society that we keep saying we are free and democracy and democratic society, and we have so much democracy here in the country that we even had access democracy that we wanted to go and give it to other people in other places. And if they don't want it, well, we're going to make them have it. We will send our guns over there and make sure that they get a dose of our democracy. Of course, I'm being facetious, because the only way to understand this is be absurd, and that's the only way to deal with this, because it's beyond me why people are still watching Fox, especially Fox. You know, the fair and balanced, we report, you decide. Yeah, sure. Ask the reporters with Fox how many of them were fired and how many of them were forced to write a story. You know, I remember when the Israelis had a siege around the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, and all news media from all over the world were there. During that siege, the Israelis decided that they wanted to do something, but they did not want anyone to cover it, so they just let every news outlet away from the site except Fox channel, except Fox News Network. Even the Israeli networks had to go. They were the only ones who covered it. And Israeli soldiers were seen even carrying the cables for the Fox team. So can you tell me why? Because, you know, in Israel, the media can report, and they do report a lot more than what our media reports. They're not afraid of anyone when they report over there in Israel. Even in Israel, they're not afraid. But our media, the minute you start talking about Israel, right away, they throw this anti-Semitic charge. And right away, no one wants to talk to you. Right away, you don't know what you're talking about. Right away, you are a racist. You are a Holocaust denier. You are a Jew hater. Right away, whenever you criticize something, and I can guarantee you, if you look at the people, now he did say it's because of corporate interest. Well, you have to understand who these corporate interests are. The people who own these 5 or 6 different corporations that own our main news networks. I'm talking about CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, all these mainstream channels, and that's where 80% of you get your news. And unfortunately, most people out there, they look at the news, they see it, they see how they cover it, and they believe it. They believe what these talking heads are telling them. Because these talking heads are now, they're back on the airwaves saying the same thing about Iran. Dick Cheney is in the Middle East, and he went visited all these countries to basically prepare for the next move on Iran, a country that is not threatening us, but they are coming back with all the old cliches that you heard about Saddam and about the threat that he supposedly that he was a threat to the world. You've heard that so much. Well, it turned out to be he was not even a threat to anybody there in Iraq, especially after the 1992 war that we very much chopped up his wings and he could not really do much. You know, I really think, and look at it. For instance, in this market, you're getting the same agenda 24 hours. And this is not the only market that we only hear from one side, which is the conservative, which is the right-wing propaganda, which is the Bush propaganda machine. 24 hours. 24 hours, that's what you hear. Right here in this market, for those of us who are watching us in the local market, you think about it. Well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. For those of you who listen to radio talk shows, they start you out in the morning, at least from the ones I see or I listen to, with Moon Grafan, a man who does not know anything, a man who watches Fox News, and he comes back and tells you what Fox News reported, and he talks to you as if it was the gospel. Then they get you Rush Limbaugh, then Sean Hannity, then Bill O'Reilly, then Larry Elders. All these people are nothing but propaganda machines for the Bush administration and the people who actually planned the war, these corporate. I don't believe, with Bill Moyer doing what he did last week, I saw the whole thing, and they had, I thought, oh wow, now somebody's going to expose them. Yeah, it was okay, but it was not a blockbuster either. He did not get it, because he could not. How in the world is he going? Because every time he interviewed someone, they had to know exactly what they wanted to talk to him about, and what is he, and their answers, they had the right to edit whatever they did not like. That's the media we have. This is the democracy that we have. This is how free we have. This is 1984, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about that little story. Orwell's story. 1984. Big Brother is here. And Big Brother is watching. And Big Brother wants to program your mind exactly with what he wants to program it with. These are the people that are, it's not George Bush. It's the people who are behind George Bush. That's the people. Last Friday, I had a piece that was published in the Daily Advertiser here. And some of the comments I read on the internet on that piece that I wrote, of course, you can only, they allow you to write only so much. And they chopped up my whole article. But if anyone is interested on seeing the whole article, it's on our website. The title of that article was "George, You Are No Maverick." And if you want to know more about that little piece that they allowed us. But, it's surprising. You see the comments. Some people called me liberal. And even though I'm a Republican, believe it or not, even though people don't believe it, but I am. I hate labels. I'm a Republican because that's what it says on my voter registration card. That's it. I don't like labels. When we start labeling each other, no, we're all Americans, and our hearts are supposed to be in this country. Our hearts are not supposed to be out there in Israel where Paul Wolfowitz's heart is, where Douglas Feith's heart is. This is where our heart's supposed to be. We're supposed to be taking care of this country. We should not be labeling each other as liberals or conservatives or whatever. I guess you can call me a liberal Republican or maybe a conservative Democrat if you want to go with these labels. I reject all these labels. And I'll tell you about a little incident, and I'll go to the phone in a little bit. I had an encounter with the only one in Lafayette that I had ever had a problem with. Is a man. I was Sunday. I took my family out to for Mother's Day. Me, my wife, and my children. And this man confronted me in the restaurant, and he wanted to attack, and he called me a traitor. How can anyone still think that we are doing the right thing in Iraq? How can anyone still think that Iraq was a threat to us? Let's face it, we were trapped. America was trapped to go to a war that was not its war. We just had the power to destroy that country for somebody else. Somebody else wanted that country destroyed. And these people, they control us through our politicians. AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, controlling our congressmen. If anyone can prove otherwise, let's talk. The same people who control our politicians, they control the media, they control your minds, they control your brains. That's what it boils down to. My heart is right here. I'm not a traitor to this country. On the contrary, I am fighting and fighting hard for the truth, because only the truth will save this country. Only the truth will save this country. Let's go to the phone with Jay. Go ahead, Jay. Oh. Sorry. All right. I thought I was on the radio.
Hello?
Jay, go ahead.
Good evening, Dr. Tillawi.
Normally I just say go ahead and they go, but I forgot I was on TV now. Okay, go ahead.
It's an interesting show. The market you speak about when you talk about basically the Rush Limbaughs and Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly. Basically, I have a problem with that market too. And we all know it as KPL Radio right here in Lafayette.
Of course.
And I don't like to hold back names. And KPL has been at the forefront. Actually in the African American community, we do a show with. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
We do a show with Brother Freedom on another radio station. We basically call KPL Hate Radio, because if you listen to them, they basically put out hate every day.
Yes.
And my other comment, and I want you to comment on this, there was a young African-American soldier that was recently buried in Lafayette.
Yes.
As an African-American
Yeah.
and a forward, progressive-thinking person. I was somewhat troubled when I heard his wife say, well, when the Channel 10, another right-wing operation to me, put the camera in front of her face, she basically said that she felt so bad that her husband was out fighting for us to protect us. And, it broke my heart only because she's so brainwashed by this system here in America. African-Americans have a lot of problems in this country, and we are always at the forefront trying to prove that we're more American than anybody else. And we come home to police brutality, poverty, and so forth. And for her to say that they were out trying to fight to protect us, I think she got it wrong. I think she's brainwashed. I don't think nobody in Iraq did anything to, especially African American people. And this is the problem I have with this president and those right wingers right here in Lafayette. And I want you to comment on that. And thank you so much, Dr. Tillawi.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Well, I saw that interview with this little young African American wife. And to tell you the truth, I mean, I very much thought about what Jay thought about, that it's silly. This woman should be able to find out why her husband got killed in Iraq. What are we doing there in Iraq? She should be looking for the truth, and instead of, but you know what? That's what people want to hear. They want to hear, oh, they're fighting to protect us. But don't put too much pressure on that young African-American woman, because if you noticed, she was all dressed up for the interview. I mean, her husband just died. I mean, she had all, dressed up and makeup, and she looked so, to me, sure, she cried a little bit, but you can tell that she was not really all out there. I mean, if your husband just died, the last thing you want to do is dress up and, have all kind of makeup on and all this stuff. You should be in mourning. But I think Channel 10 needs to also, because that's another right-wing propaganda, they also need to show the other people who are not supporting this war, because they go there, they are a propaganda. That's what they are. They should have went. I'm sure there is somebody in Lafayette here who is a soldier or a family who lost someone in Iraq, and they do not like the war. I know we have a lot of people. We lost a lot of people here in this area. I know we lost some in Generate. We lost some in Crowley. We lost some in New Iberia. I know there is somebody out there who does not like the war. The family does not like the war, but Channel 10 will not go and interview these people because they are very much the same. They're controlled, ladies and gentlemen, by the bigger. Their loyalty is not to you here, this market. And I always said, people need to go, turn their TVs off, call these channels and say, you either carry the truth or we're never going to be watching you again. And I told people to go and picket in front of these stations, because they're the ones who got you all these talking heads into your own homes to give you nothing but lies and deceits, and they knew it. And KPL, if you know any of the advertisers that you hear advertised on that station, you need to call those advertisers and tell them that shame on them supporting a radio station like this. If you want to be in this market and you want to be on the airs, then you need to have different point of views, not just one view, and that is the wrong view. Let's go to Ramsey in Canada. Go ahead, Ramsey. Ramsey. Did I just hang up on him? Okay, tell him to call back, or maybe, I don't know, maybe he was waiting for too long. But go ahead and call back, Ramsey. Sometimes I I guess today I'm confused if I'm on TV or on radio, but it didn't work. He was on too. I must have done something wrong. But anyhow, but please call back, Ramsey. We have about like 6 minutes or so, but I do want to hear from you. But this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the media. This is the media. And this is Big Brother watching you. This is Big Brother programming you exactly what they want you to hear. The way they want you to believe. Rupert Murdoch. You know, England very much controlled almost the whole world at one time, colonizing the world. It used to be said, they said that the British Empire was the empire that the sun never sets on. I mean, right, yeah, it sets on. But right now, they are colonizing your mind. They are colonizing the airwaves. They are colonizing TV. They are colonizing the media. That's how. Okay, who's on one? Just tell me, we don't have much time. Ramsey on one. All right, go ahead, Ramsey.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, I'm sorry, I knocked you off a while ago.
It's okay, sir. Yes, sir, I totally agree with you about the media. And sir, on your previous shows, you had a woman named Alison Weir.
Yes, Alison Weir.
And she did a very extensive research regarding how biased the media is. Like,
right.
They show like Israelis are seen 5 times greater than the Palestinians who are mostly suffering. And sir, also, I want to tell you something about a film. It's called Peace, Propaganda, and the Promised Land.
Yes.
Media and the Israeli-Palestine conflict. It shows you all the tremendous bias in the American media.
Right. I've heard of that film. Yes.
And sir, I think it's also important that sir, you have on your show to talk about the history of the media, how it became corporate like it is today.
Yeah, you know, we did a show, and we will do it again because I think we need to have people more and more aware of what the media is all about. We did a show of how the media evolved from what it was, a small hometown newspapers, to big giant corporate machines. Yes. But definitely that's a good idea, and we will do one like that. Appreciate it, Ramsey.
Yeah, I really appreciate it because I think it's important.
Yes, thank you, Ramsey. Thanks. Okay, don't have much time. Freedom, go ahead.
Well, Dr. Tillawi, I was listening to Michael Savage earlier. As you know, KVOL 1330 on your dial now is trying to turn to KPEL radio. There is no balance whatsoever. These guys they take less phone calls than you take. In a 3-hour show, you'll be lucky to get 5 phone calls, and you take them in an hour show. But the thing I want to say is this. Could you please explain to me again, the 3 American soldiers who are missing in Iraq so far, the news media continue to say that they are kidnapped. I thought, Dr. Tillawi, when you were in hostilities,
you capture
against, that's what I thought it was. I mean, are we at war or are we at play?
Yeah, that's like that little Israeli soldier, a gunner on a tank that the Palestinians have only one, and they said that the Palestinians kidnapped an Israeli soldier. Yeah, how do you kidnap a soldier? You know, it's funny. Yeah, you capture a soldier.
And I want to ask you one other question about KPEL. Are you ready?
Yes.
Now, how in the world, with President Bush's approval rating at 28%, Dick Cheney's approval rating at 9%, even here in Louisiana, both of them are low because of Katrina, how can KPEL radio keep pushing this right-wing junk at people like you and I when we're trying to find out the truth?
Well, you know,
wait, I'm going to hang up and listen to you.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, okay. I thought he had a follow-up or something. You know, everything is about money. As long as, I bet you, those people who support KPEL are very much people who keeping it afloat, and I don't think KPEL is a profitable business. I really think if he goes anywhere, if he starts doing something else, even though this guy who owns the place, what I understand, I don't know him, but what I understand is he used to be a level-headed guy, and then for some reason he went just in one direction only, which is the more conservative Bush supporter type of thing. They used to have a couple of shows there that very much put a balance, not really a balance. I mean, they had like 1 or 2 shows, actually I think 1, and but for the last few years they did not. It's only one agenda, which is the war agenda. How they, that's an excellent question. I guess the only answer I can tell you is there's really not too many people listening to them. And probably most of the people that are listening to them are the people who are getting mad at them. Because there is no way, I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh just to get mad. Just to get mad, because I knew that there's nothing he was going to say, and now I listen to a little bit. I don't like make it a point to listen to these people, but if I'm driving, I want to know what they're talking about. And the great American Sean Hannity, that is the most idiotic person I ever seen in my life. I mean, he lies and lies and lies to his teeth. I don't have an answer for you, Brother Freedom. All I can tell you is, apparently, he has enough advertisers to keep KPEL doing what they're doing. That's the only thing I can say. Or the man doesn't care about the truth. The man doesn't care even about the people in Lafayette to bring them the truth. Because you know what? They want the truth. Put me for an hour there. Put me for 1 hour. And you can have 23 hours of whatever you want to do. And we'll see how many of the advertisers, and we'll see your numbers. If you want to make money, put this guy on the station. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back very soon. And, or any other station, by the way. It does not have to be KPL, I'm very much game for any station. I'll even go on a gospel station if that... But anyhow, in the next hour, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue talking very much in the same theme. My next guest is a journalist, and also we'll see what he thinks about the war on terror. We're going to concentrate on the war on terror, that big lie, how the media was able to very much pass that big lie through to your brain, and it kind of sat there. And now everyone says, we need to go there and kill the terrorists. I hear them on the these people who call radio shows and stuff like that. It's like, oh, we need to go kill the terrorists. Well, who are the terrorists? Can you tell me who are the terrorists? But anyhow, get up, stretch, do whatever you need to do. Come back here in 4 minutes so we can get started with Mike Green. We will be right back. It's going to be a good hour. Don't go too far. See you then.